If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to Health Further. We have Marcus out this week and have a guest host, Emily Evans, again returning, one of the fan favorites here. Thanks for joining. I'm not sure where Marcus is, but we have you here.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad Marcus is enjoying some time off so I can be here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of policy this week, so it's a good time to have you coming in.
Yeah.
Let's dig right into the story. Okay, so the economy, this is the Wall Street Journal, U.S. consumer sentiment worsened in May. People are feeling worse about the economy.
Yeah.
Not super surprising to me. What'd you think about that?
Well, gas prices, of course, are a big part of it, because if you strip out energy in the CPI and the other inflation measures, those are okay.
Yeah,
you know?
It's holding on fairly flat.
Fairly flat.
Yeah.
But the energy and gasoline costs, which is a huge input cost for literally everything, that's a problem. And it will take a while to filter through, because higher energy costs still haven't made it into the cost of wheat and potatoes and and meat. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
So they're right to be blue. Bigger problem is that wages aren't keeping up with higher prices.
Right.
So
There's 4 stories on the economy. This summer's teen job market is the toughest in decades, from the Wall Street Journal.
yeah.
It's a hard time to be a teenager trying to find a job.
Which is funny, because there's so many fewer teenagers now.
Yeah.
We still don't have enough teenagers. I mean, we have too many teenagers, even though we haven't actually birthed enough teenagers in the last teen years. But the whole picture, whether consumer confidence, jobs that have low skill or no skill, like a teenager would seek, are a problem. And it's a problem that is going to have to be corrected. I mean, because there'll be political consequences if they're not.
Well, if we don't have teen workers that, I agree, don't have a lot of skills coming in, but they learn the job skills. They learn to be there on time. They learn to follow instructions. They learn new skills.
Very important.
Yeah. So if we don't have that, then we're not going to have 20-year-olds that know how to work. And
we did go through a pretty long period there where kids didn't work in summer jobs like they used to. I mean, certainly, I lived for my summer job, and it kept me in beer and pretzels, through most of college. So
then there was a period where teens didn't work in the summer that much?
Well, you had a diversion into, especially people bound for the elite colleges, right? Where they want to see that you started a business and...
They're sort of building their resume more than they're getting a paid job.
Yeah, so you don't... If you go down to Publix here in Nashville, not too far from Montgomery Bell Academy, you're not going to find too many people from MBA working at Publix, although I have met one. It's just in that socioeconomic group that's summer jobs haven't been a thing, which is of course another problem. But for everybody else, not being able to find a summer job is not a good thing.
Okay, and then there's a story about Phoenix. Marcus and I covered this about a year ago. The call center space, which Phoenix really invested a lot in. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Phoenix built an empire of cubicle jobs. AI is coming to tear it down. So Phoenix was the country's call center capital, and we don't need as many call centers anymore.
No, we don't need as many call centers. And I remember at the time thinking, is this really what you want to be known for? Because there's a lot of ways to look at AI job replacement, but one of my favorite ways to look at it, and one of the more humorous ways to look at it, is that job so unrewarding that a computer can do it? Right? Is that job are you a human, really basically just a piece of machinery? And so when we actually move the machinery into your spot, it doesn't matter. And I remember thinking that when the call center thing got to be really big, and we had a lot of discussions in Nashville about, we're going to, and I think Asurian was our first call center.
Asurian's here.
And it doesn't seem like it never seemed like a great idea to me. But now those chickens are coming home to roost, because you don't really need a call center.
And there's a chart here in the journal, U.S. back office employment by category, and they have ChatGPT released 2022, and then after that, these back office jobs are declining significantly, which is not really that surprising, because you can automate many of those things away.
Yeah. Well, and one way of looking at that is that's terrible, people losing jobs. But the other way of looking at it is, okay, well, where are they applying their skills? What other things are they going to do? You can't just assume they're going to go home and curl up and die. I mean, they're going to redeploy themselves. That's what most people do.
That's the opportunity.
Yeah.
But the fear, I think, behind this story is the opportunity may not evolve as quickly as the cuts.
No, and not on a geographically consistent way, or that's the trick of it all.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the story of humanity, right? You have innovation. Innovation does not spread throughout an economy or a country or a world at the same pace and in the same places, and there's a lot of adaptation that has to take place.
Yeah.
But if your job is so soulless that you get replaced by a computer, probably you might find something more wonderful beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. And I think, I'll take the other side just for fun. I think it might be better for the people in Phoenix to have those opportunities appear and let them self-select to go do a more rewarding job on their own, as opposed to be laid off in mass and then having to figure out where to move to.
Yeah, it's a difficult turn of the innovation, cycle that, the world has seen many, many, many times.
It'll work out in a 10 or 15 year view, but the interim can be
difficult.
Can be challenging. Yeah. And then the last story for the economy, the Trump accounts are launching today.
Right.
I think they already have launched this morning. And so that is a small glimmer of positive news, but it's pretty small, but it's still positive.
You have to have a baby.
You have to have a baby. And it's $1,000 in federal money, which would be invested and could turn into a meaningful amount over time.
Yeah.
It's a net positive. It's totally good.
There's a few things going on here, and I think they get lost in the shuffle. But what the White House is trying to do is develop policies that favor family creation and therefore household creation and therefore economic vitality, right? When you form a household, you have a baby,
you buy a bunch of stuff.
You buy a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And the secondary effect of that is that and fertility is now below replacement in the United States and around the world, weirdly, right? It's not even like a U.S. as problem, so it's hard to point to, okay, it's the economy or it's technology or whatever, but there's been this pretty big drop-off. And one of the second order effects of low fertility is people really stop caring about the future of their community, their state, their country, because their
kids are not going to be there. They don't have kids.
They don't have kids.
Yeah.
And so that what's that famous Thomas Paine phrase? I want to live in interesting times so that my children will have peace, right? He was his whole attitude was, let's fight this war, let's fight this fight, and then we'll be preserving peace for future generations. If there aren't any future generations, then you don't get that in your culture and in your society. So they have this multi-pronged pro-fertility program going. We haven't seen any effects, and we're not going to see them for 9 months or more. But especially with that consumer confidence number and these job losses thing, it's going to be tough. But credit to them for trying to address what is an existential problem. If you don't work on your fertility issues, you might as well just pack it in and go home in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's also it's something we've been talking about is the K-shaped economy. And if you have less than half your net worth in financial assets, it's hard to get ahead, right? The wages are not growing at the same, maybe roughly inflation, but you're not gaining much ground.
No.
And this is a way to give people your kids have a stake in the stock market.
Right.
And so in theory, they own a little bit of SpaceX when it comes public. They own a little bit of Google. They own a little bit of IBM.
And that's exciting.
Yeah. And and even if it's small, they're at least participating.
Right.
So I think that's positive.
Huge.
We have a huge kind of social challenge in finding a way to pull the bottom of the K up to have a good life.
Yeah.
So.
And I think probably the president isn't getting enough credit for, I think, trying to fix something there that badly needs to be fixed.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move into the VC section. So Commure raised $70 million at a post-money valuation of $7 billion. Commure is General Catalyst's back office revenue cycle platform. Sequoia Capital came in, Morgan Stanley came in, Kirkland & Ellis. Huge deal, very large valuation.
Right.
What do you think about Commure?
This is what AI is for in healthcare.
The revenue cycle,
all that stuff that people do that isn't taking care of patients and isn't managing the people that take care of patients is ripe for automation, and it's ripe for solutions, that are effective, low cost, work 24/7, all of those things. And this scares policymakers because these are jobs that will be replaced by technology. But going back to what I said earlier, there's sort of jobs that should be replaced by technology.
I mean, one way to think about this, not necessarily around Commure, but the whole market is in healthcare, we have something like 20% or $1 trillion a year spent on administrative back office services.
Right.
That is basically settlement or some version of settlement.
Right.
And in manufacturing or financial services, maybe it's 2%, 5%. It's not 20%.
No.
And so we need to figure out a way to get that administrative burden down.
See, you cannot. It cannot persist. You know what we're doing, and it's inflating the system, and because it's inflating the system, it's hitting wages in the form of health insurance premiums.
Right.
And so that has to get fixed, and everybody whining, and and it's very partisan. The whining that's going on has to recognize that.
Yeah.
Even though they don't want to.
Okay, then Benefitbay raised $18 million in a Series A to scale their ICHRA platform.
I love the ICHRA idea. I love it. I'm mystified why the ramp has been so slow on it.
I think it's very analogous to the transition from pension plans to 401ks.
Yeah.
It's a societal shift where, just take retirement. It used to be that the company you worked for took care of you in old age with a fixed pension. And then that got changed because as the boomers matured into that, I think we couldn't afford that.
Right.
And simultaneously all the 401k. So you basically shifted it to a defined contribution of money as opposed to a defined benefit forever and put the burden on the employees. I was too young to remember, but I'm sure there was some pushback as people lost their pension and got 401k plans. You have this dynamic where people are used to getting their health benefits from their employer.
Right.
And maybe they have 2 or 3 options, but it's pretty much like take one of these choices.
Yeah.
And ICHRA is going to give them an amount of money to spend.
Right.
And then it's like an a la carte thing.
Right. And we've had, ICHRA is an iteration on HRAs, which we've had longer than January of 2020 when HRAs were expanded to ICHRA. And I know that part of the problem is the benefit decisions made in the HR department rarely make it to the C-suite. And so there is a little bit of nobody wants to talk about it kind of thing. And for years, and I know we'll talk about this more later, but for years, the whole pharmacy benefit manager rebate system has subsidized benefit costs at large employers, and even over 100 employees. And so they haven't really wanted to change because they lose this nice juicy rebate that underwrote their
You can't do
benefit.
PBM if you're in ICHRA?
Whoever has the plan that you subscribe for would
get that.
They would get that. It wouldn't go to the employer.
Yeah, so they give up the financial responsibility, but they also give up the benefit.
They give up some of the benefits and some of the tax treatment, though not all of it, because in ICHRA you're providing a tax-free allowance. But it's who's gonna do it and how much take up you're gonna have versus the tax benefits you get from
just paying for it.
Just paying for it. That's a calculation that has to be done. I'm optimistic that it will roll out. I think the economic gravity of health insurance is going to dictate that going forward, and the loss of all these disguises that health insurance has worn to avoid people knowing actually how much benefit expense there is out there.
Yeah, and I think it also gives power and decision making to each employee.
Right.
But I'm not going to have any more. I mean, I never had any babies. My wife's not going to have any more babies. We don't necessarily need the same coverage we needed when we were newlyweds and planning to start our family.
Which you cannot buy, by the way, even under ICHRA.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because if you go out on the exchanges, you're buying a qualified health plan. Now, here in Tennessee, we have the Tennessee Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
And
that's my insurance.
Okay. Yeah. Tennessee Farm Bureau sells plans that are not qualified under the federal law, which is fine because people buy them, so they like them.
Right.
And so,
I bought one.
I was on the Farm Bureau for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and the big misstep right now at the White House, I think, is looking at employer-sponsored insurance. And we're going to get to a story here in a minute, and looking at all these health insurance plans out there and asking this question, the question, which is, why are we doing one size fits all or almost one size fits all? And we know because that was what they wanted to do under the Affordable Care Act, but it just doesn't work.
Well, it's because the risk pools are really hard to manage if you let people opt out, right?
Yeah, but hey, not my problem, right? As a purchaser of insurance. Am I really supposed to be worried whether Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee's risk pool works? No, I don't care. I care about what comes out of my paycheck every month. And
but as a policymaker in the Obama administration, I think the concept was, if they can't sustain the risk pools, then it's going to be really bad overall.
Well, and this was the argument for forget about trying to get a risk pool to work. Let the government be there for catastrophes because we've got a bottomless pit of money over here and we will insure against a catastrophe and then let everybody figure the rest of it out. That was the big argument. And it ended up that the White House and the Democrats won and came up with these risk pools, but you're looking at your paycheck every month, right? And you're going, do I really care about your frickin' risk pool?
Yeah.
The answer is no,
right.
I don't.
Right.
And that's a miss by the Trump White House to go. Now they're trying, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But there's a lot more that they could do that they have not done.
Yeah. Okay. Nourish raises $100 million to expand their care model with physicians. So Nourish is a virtual nutrition company. They raised $100 million, led by Menlo Ventures, and they are adding physicians to their service, which used to be only dietary advice, food advice,
right,
to deliver what they're calling comprehensive metabolic health,
right,
which is probably what they have to do because it's a hard market to only do weight management and nutrition.
Right.
It's pretty competitive. What do you think about this market?
My mother would be just thrilled to learn that she's could be worth $100 million. My mother was a dietitian. And
oh, really?
So
okay.
So
I didn't know where you were going with that.
I was on the cutting edge of organic food very early on. Like We didn't have cookies in my house.
Mhm.
We had vanilla wafers.
You could have organic cookies, though.
Well,
I mean,
not then, but
Okay.
vanilla wafers occasionally.
yeah.
But every single meal was protein, vegetable, starch,
Yeah.
salad, iced tea. That was it, baby. You were done
Yeah.
for the night. And my mother considered it completely beneath her dignity to ever buy food at a fast food restaurant. I mean, that was
Yeah.
just anathema. You might as well ask her to walk down the street without any clothes on. But back in the day, we used to teach nutrition in home ec classes, and we would those are the kinds of things we would educate people on, and we stopped doing that along with a lot of other things. But there are a ton of people out there who look at the packaging and believe that the packaging, this is organic or this is probiotic or whatever, is actually honest, and it's not.
It's marketing with regulation.
It's marketing with barely regulation. The regulation of food for the last 20 years has been nearly non-existent, and it is actually kind of frightening because there's a phrase, it's called generally regarded as safe grass, and what the FDA says is if you put lemon in iced tea and you package that and you sell that, well, lemon is generally regarded as safe. That's okay. All right. But they let the food industry define what was generally regarded as safe in this very passive process where the food company would say, oh, yeah, I'm adding this sweetener to baby formula, true story, to make it sweeter so the baby will eat more baby formula. And I've done all this work and it's generally regarded as safe. And if the FDA didn't say, wait a minute, can we look at that? They didn't say that. It went into the baby formula.
Yeah.
So there needs to be more skepticism on the part of the public while the FDA works through what has been this extremely passive approach to food quality and food supply and what's in your food chain. And understanding things like nutrition and understanding how protein fits in and how carbs fit in and calories, which is of course the GLP-1 thing.
Yeah.
Is that $100 million business? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it's a huge need.
Correct.
We need to teach people about nutrition as a healthcare system, and it is very intertwined with metabolic health.
Right.
So I agree with that concept.
Yeah.
The go-to-market strategy, how you package that, how you make money at that, I think is pretty competitive.
That would be my my assumption. But I would say this: it would be nice if there was some agreed upon principles about nutrition, which right now there really aren't.
Yeah. Okay, and then Marcus and I have been watching the private credit, private loan space for 6 months. It's fraying, but still holding on right now. We'll see what happens with that. But there's a story in the Wall Street Journal: private loans to venture-backed startups are surging despite AI disruption concerns. So the value of credit deals with VC-backed companies rose almost 12% last year. So I'm not a big fan of debt in high-growth venture companies. I don't think that makes sense.
You can stop that for me. I'm not a fan of debt.
Period.
Period.
Yeah. So this is concerning. Probably won't end that well.
Well, isn't it just, hey, I've got a VC. I can't sell any more equity, right? Nobody's going to do that. So I go to the debt markets because that's how I'm going to keep this train going or this company going. I go to the debt markets when really the right answer is...
Should be the opposite of that, shouldn't it?
What? That you go to the debt markets first?
Well, I mean, equity should be the higher risk, higher return type of financing.
Yeah, right.
So if you can't get new equity, new venture capital, you shouldn't qualify for a debt.
Correct. Yes. And the fact that you are getting debt means you're trying to keep your company moving forward when maybe there's another question to be asked, which is maybe you should scale back your company. Maybe you shouldn't have a company. Maybe you should sell your company. Those are, this is how private equity and private credit evolved, where private equity company wasn't really I mean, it's zombies. These are the economy's filled with these zombies, and so somebody got the brilliant idea. Well, there's no more equity, and nobody's going to take the risk that comes with equity. So let's borrow money,
Yeah.
and that isn't ending well. That's where you've seen with Blue Owl and some of the others, and borrowing.
Hopefully it'll be limited to the institutional investors, maybe family offices lose money and they made bad underwriting decisions, and so I'm okay with that. If it sort of grows too big, then it'll have to be subsidized somehow and taken over,
or it takes down other things. That's what we always have to.
That's
have
always
to worry
the
about.
worry.
And what will determine the future is what the interest rate environment does here over the next few months.
Yeah,
which has us all betting on a war in the Middle East.
Right. Okay, so let's move into policy. We have two stories about elections.
Big weeks.
Which really is not that common in our show, but they have policy implications. So Senator Bill Cassidy lost his primary
by a lot.
Came in third. So he will not be a senator next year. No. And that's going to have repercussions in policy. That was last week. And then Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, won his primary.
By a lot.
And these are both Trump did the opposite of endorsing Cassidy. He was supporting one of the other candidates. Right. I think he was supporting
Julia Lifla, right?
Yeah. So at least in red markets, Trump's endorsement. Now it may be that he was picking with Cassidy. He might have not done that well anyway.
There's that's the headline is, don't cross Donald Trump or you won't get his endorsement. The political fact of the matter is you don't come in third in your state that you have served for over a decade because Donald Trump endorsed you. Voters are not automatons. They're not robots. They make decisions on their own. You come in third because you were out of step with your people. That's what happened. And that's the same with John Cornyn losing to Ken Paxton in Texas, is you just had lost your step. And the step here, and it's expressed in the endorsement from Donald Trump, is that MAGA or MAHA, to group these policies into two catchphrases, there is a lot of the electorate, particularly in red states, who think that the White House was not moving fast enough. And that's particularly in the Make America Healthy Again effort. We saw these firings at the FDA. Senator Cassidy has chaired the Help Committee, which is one of two big Senate committees on health. And as the chairman of that committee, he supposedly extracted a promise from Secretary Robert Kennedy in exchange for confirming him.
Yeah, right.
He extracted this promise. Well, Kennedy would not change vaccine policy. Well, that goes in the face of everything that MAHA stands for, which is we want to review these drugs, especially drugs going into children, a lot more carefully. And we want to require them to be used a lot more carefully. And that extends to SSRIs, that's vaccines, SSRIs, what's in baby formula. I mean, there's a big long list of things, but vaccines were definitely a flashpoint after the public health emergency. And he gave Kennedy a pretty hard time. And so he what the price he paid at the ballot box was not so much being off sides with Trump, but that I think he's off sides with the public and his voters because they expected more. And one of the lessons from these last two elections, and we still have some more to see, Georgia is a very much an open question, is the public saying more MAGA, not less, more MAHA, not less? And I think the answer to that is yes, which changes the dynamic going into midterms in the fall.
think it's yes in some states or some voting areas.
Could be.
And maybe not in other areas, but
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Well, Georgia's a big,
Yeah.
that'll be a big question, I think.
Okay, and so Cassidy lost his election on Tuesday, week ago Tuesday. I was out of town, so we didn't cover it last week. And then on Wednesday, the next day, Trump and CMS and Kennedy came out with new proposals for Medicaid, state-directed payments, and I think supplemental payments as well. And you said this to me. I wouldn't have come up with this on my own, but these things are directly related.
Yeah,
like they were holding off some of their more aggressive or more pointed changes until they found out whether Cassidy was going to be there or not.
Yeah, they came out swinging on a number of fronts on Wednesday, and you can only conclude that they were holding on to.
They're kind of waiting to see.
Let's see what happens here, because we might want to put this on ice or water it down or or delay it, or there's all kinds of levers you can pull here. But on Wednesday they released this rule on state supplemental payments and state directed payments. And not to bring down the audience here, but the state directed payments are a mechanism by which health insurance companies agree to tax themselves. That raises revenue in the state. That money is then matched by federal dollars, so $1 becomes $2 or so forth. And then that money, the $2, now that it's matched, flows back to
the plans.
The directed to not just to the plans, but the plans are told you're going to send that money to hospitals or nursing homes or what have you. And in fact, if you look at, I have this wonderful chart for HCA where the revenue per Medicaid admission hockey sticks, and it hockey sticks because they're getting very significant amount of state-directed payments. Supplemental payments operate in the fee-for-service, not the managed care.
Yeah, so let me just try to see if I can summarize that. So state-directed payments are a tactic to create more funds for managed Medicaid, which kind of run by an insurance company.
Right, specifically to create more federal funds for managed Medicaid.
Yeah, both state-directed and supplemental are a tactic to get higher matching from the federal government.
That's right. Yeah.
Supplemental payments are more for the health. They tax the health system.
Correct.
Whereas state-directed tax the payer.
Right.
But the end result is pretty similar, that the state then has, let's use your example, has $1 more to invest in either side.
Right.
They match it. Of course, the feds will match 1-to-1. So now they have $2. But the state didn't really spend that money themselves in a vacuum. They did it with this wink and a nod agreement that it's going to be kind of circulated back to the people that are paying it.
Yeah. And the only real criteria they need to adhere to in the states is no quid pro quo. They can't say, HCA can't say, okay, you can tax me, but you need to send that money back to me.
Yeah.
I can't do that. But, if you're the biggest hospital provider in the state, and it's all going to work out just fine.
Yeah, because they do it by number of beds or
and there's nothing,
whatever.
This is the law. There's nothing untoward about
Yeah.
this. This is the law. But it's inflationary, because you've gone from, back in the 90s, government paid roughly half, federal government paid roughly half the Medicaid program. Now the federal government is paying between 70 and 80% of the Medicaid program, which is inflationary. One of the beauty of state, and this is what the crafters of the Medicaid program depended on, states have to balance their budgets. So there is a natural constraint on the amount of money that they can spend on their Medicaid program. There's no such natural constraint with the federal government. So the federal government sends, not 50%, not 60%, but 70, 80% back to the states. It's inflationary. It causes, that's what inflation is. Too much money chasing too few goods.
Yes, I agree it's inflationary, but that's not necessarily the only effect. And so this new policy, let's just cover the facts of it. So the big, beautiful bill last summer,
right,
I think stopped new at least new supplemental payments from going on.
Right.
But I don't know that it really affected state-directed payments. Maybe it did.
No, it was state-directed primarily.
State-directed was stopped.
But it was not fee-for-service supplemental payments.
Okay.
So the fee-for-service supplemental payments is a step outside and beyond the One Big Beautiful Bill that was announced on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And is there going to be a debate on whether the executive branch has that authority?
there will be, and they're citing executive order on this. It's a question I don't know the answer to as to whether or not whether the courts will agree. But it doesn't matter because as the state comes in for its Section 1115 waivers to renew, all the White House and CMS has to say is we're not going to do that.
Right.
Because that is at our discretion, or something even worse. So they're going to go to court. I think that they might win the battle, but they're not going to win the war.
Okay, so and then by 2029,
right?
There are no supplemental payments or state-directed payments. Right?
They will exist, but the amount of money that would flow to the health hospitals, let's use that as an example, is either 100% in an expansion state or 110% in a non-expansion state of Medicare.
Of Medicare.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're capped. So that's less money. So reducing the inflationary effects of the federal contribution to the Medicaid program. That's
so lots of complexity.
Very much so.
At the end of the day, less money is going to flow from the federal government to the states.
Yeah.
And less money will be available for Medicaid patients.
Correct.
Which are the lower income, by definition, the lower income patients.
Right.
How does that roll out? Like, that's going to mean that there are fewer services covered. The rates are going to be lower. There's
I
more.
think we start with fewer services covered, with the more discretionary programs. Things like home health, which has gotten a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse attention. School programs. Those are the kinds of things that you can try and shunt aside to make the program work. Hospitals have an enormous amount of leverage in these states, so I don't know yet how bad that will be for them. We're going to have to see how they react. They are counting on, I'm fairly certain, that they'll get the laws changed before 2029, and they will convince either the next president or the next or the next Congress, to come in and change that.
Oh, you think that HA or hospital groups are going to try to change it?
I think that's the game that's been being played for a very, very long time. I don't know
how... That's a pretty big gamble.
It is a big gamble, but it's one they've been fairly successful at. And I don't know if they're going to be successful here because, the problem is that the system is overfunded. There's too much money going into healthcare. There's a lot of people out there that are going to disagree with me on that, but
yeah, I don't know that. Let's talk about that. I don't know how you judge whether it's too much money or enough money. How would you? Let's just take home health because you named that. I think that's a good one to take. It's easier than the school programs that are more long dated.
Right.
But there's a lot of need for home health.
Sure.
And maybe there's fraud. If there's fraud, we should go track it down and put people in jail.
Right.
But there are people that need home health services that are eligible for Medicaid.
Right.
And if we stop delivering that, they're going to have repercussions, right? They're not going to have the same care.
If you go back to when there was more budget discipline for Medicare and Medicaid. Okay. And that
maybe like before early 2000s, somewhere in there?
It would be about halfway through the Obama administration. Okay. President Obama was very outspoken, and everybody in his administration was very aggressive in pursuing fraud, waste, and abuse, and in budget considerations. It didn't work out like they thought it would, but they were fixed. It was something they gave a great deal of attention to, and we haven't had that as part of a federal, core federal responsibility since probably 2012, 13. It would be, a good number to put on it. So the system has just been kind of on autopilot. So being able to say, okay, this group of people need that service, and separating that from, the broader fraud, waste, and abuse problem, it's kind of difficult to do. But if you go back to that period of time, you can actually see these curves
let's go before the great financial crisis, because that messed up things. But if you go to 2005 or 2003,
right, you had
did these programs exist?
Oh yeah, and but not in
not this size,
not at the scale, no.
Yeah.
But if you go back and you look at the cost of national health expenditures, is great numbers to use, and you look at the year-over-year inflation, excluding drugs, because you had the prescription drug benefit, Medicare Part D, come in to law in 2000. Excluding that, you have fairly flat inflation curves, 2%, so forth. After really since 2019, you've got 6, 7, 8% inflation curves. Why? Because we're tossing money at it, and when you give people money, they spend it. That's just how inflation works.
Yeah.
So it's the challenge before the administration is, how do we get this spending in line? And one of the first answers to that is, we just stop sending more money to the system, and that's this.
Yeah, and so there's sort of two ends of a spectrum, right? Like on one end, there's less money coming into the program, and so those funds are allocated in a more careful way, in a more rational way, and the people that need the services, take-home health, that really need that most clearly get it,
right?
And the people that maybe they don't really need as much service, they don't get it anymore, and they have to have their daughter or their neighbor or someone else help them.
Right.
That could be good. It could be positive.
We'll have to see.
So that's one side. Let me just finish that. So the other side is, there are lots of people that don't get care, and then they go in to an emergency room, or they go to get services not when they are sort of just experiencing early symptoms, but much sicker, and health systems then have significant growth in uncompensated care. It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Right. Yeah. Well, and a good philosophical question to ask is, these state-directed payments or supplemental payments that are flowing primarily into hospitals, okay? And they're doing that to make up the difference between the Medicaid rate, traditional Medicaid rate, and the commercial rate. And now that is going to be lowered to the Medicare rate. But a good philosophical question is, you, Mr. Hospital, with your tax exemption, and you don't pay property taxes, are you really supposed to get the commercial rate for treating the poor? Aren't you getting all these other benefits, like not paying property taxes in Midtown Nashville, for doing the thing that we need you to do, which is to take care of the poor? You're not supposed to need this extra payment. But the hospitals were able to convince the Biden White House in particular that was the case.
Yeah.
So if you come from the commercial rate back to the Medicare rate, you're probably cutting that in half.
Right.
And then you're to the point where, okay, should the hospitals scream and yell, we want the commercial rate? Or should they go, well, these are poor people, and we're a nonprofit, and that's our job, to take care of those people regardless. I don't know. But they better have the right answer, because they're sort of on the ropes right now anyway.
Yeah.
And they better get it together.
Well, no one knows. I certainly don't know what will happen in the next presidential election.
Right.
But if there's a Democrat in the White House, there probably is a pretty good chance.
Yes, that it'll.
If it's a Republican, I don't know. It's going to be. It's going to be hard to reverse this policy if the Republicans win. I think hospitals need to have some plan for losing this in the next 4 years.
That would be my advice to anybody who would ask.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things. There's a whole lot of there's adjustments that need to be made by hospitals generally, which is why they're in the crosshairs politically. That's why everybody's talking about healthcare affordability and they're pointing their finger at hospitals. That's not really fair. Hospitals just reflect the cost of, care. I mean, they got a lot of people doing stuff I don't know that they should be doing, but but still, they it's what it costs. And that's what they pay for.
Okay, well, that will be interesting to watch. It's going to be
that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah. Okay, and then
another deflationary tactic.
Yes, and so another change is CMS is now allowing Affordable Care Act, Medicare, and government supported to be much wider as far as what insurance covers.
Mm-hmm.
Higher deductibles, different coverage areas, different tiered plans. It used to be that you had gold and silver and bronze, which were pretty regulated,
right?
Highly regulated.
Too regulated is the argument.
Yeah. And then you could offer one or two other plans for each gold one, I think. Right. And now it's just a free-for-all. You can offer whatever you want and let the consumer decide what they want.
Right.
Which is, maybe the American way, and freedom is a great thing. And I think it's pretty clear that if you are poor, you're going to opt for a lesser insurance coverage.
Well, you're
plan.
already doing that.
Yeah.
We can
That's why I'm on Farm Bureau.
Yeah. We can see very clearly that since 2009, let's use employer-sponsored insurance because this affects the Affordable Care Act, but just using employer-sponsored insurance. In 2009, about 9% of workers on employer-sponsored insurance had a high deductible plan. Now it's 33%.
Yeah.
That's 2025 data. Dollars to Donuts 2026 data has it creeping close to 50%.
50?
Yeah, I bet it's close to 50% now. All right.
Oh, hold on. So it's 25 and 2025 was 25%?
It was 33%.
33.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and you think it's going to go closer to 50?
Closer to 50. And that's based on anecdotes. When I talk to doctors, I'm about 11% cash pay now. They will tell you that, which means the insurance isn't, it's there for something bad happening, and everything else is I'll just give you my credit card because that's easier.
It's like every other insurance product in the world. Like my car insurance doesn't pay me for gas fill-ups.
Yeah, or new tires. And your household insurance doesn't pay for, your
window getting cracked or mowing the lawn.
You take care of those things. Right. And the way in which the health policy ecosystem has explained to you why you're wrong is by bringing up this catastrophic cancer you're going to get 5 minutes from now. They always bring up the edge cases. The fact of the matter is that there aren't that many edge cases. They exist, but increasingly they're on Medicare. So the idea here with making these bronze plans more flexible on the Affordable Care Act is to recognize what's already happened, which is people are moving from silver to gold to bronze because they're trying to keep their premiums down, and they need to keep their premiums down because their wages aren't growing, and the cost of the premiums are becoming unacceptably high. There's no way out of that other than massive subsidization, but that's why you're in this boat to begin with, because we do so much subsidization of the system that it doesn't have the moderators, price, restricting access. We don't have any of those things in the system, and it's gone completely haywire.
Increasing out-of-pocket limits, by 30% in 2027 to 15, a little over 15 and a half.
31 grand for a
31
family.
grand for a family.
Yeah.
And then it says, for perspective, 15.6 is about a third of the median personal income.
Right.
And roughly the entire income of someone at the federal poverty level. So people will have insurance, but if they have any significant health issue, they're not going to have the money to pay it.
No, they will. And the first it sounds really cold-hearted, but this is economics, so we have to say it.
Yeah.
But the first response for any smart individual is, I probably should be a little more careful with my health, right? That's the moral hazard argument that we've seen.
Do you think that's real? Do you think someone who is making $50K a year and has a family of 3, say,
Yeah.
is going to look at this new policy and say, I should eat healthy and start exercising?
Yeah, I don't know that it's that. It's this. So I there's this IT guy where I used to work, and he had a heart attack. Okay, he has a heart attack, and he's still eating 2 Five Guys cheeseburgers at lunch. And I was like, you think you should be doing that?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I just pop a couple Lipitor. so do people think like that? Yes, they absolutely do think like that. Is that the only way they think? No, and that's why I presented it as the first an effect, not maybe the first order effect, but an effect is people start thinking, I probably need to be a little bit more careful about my health. Maybe I'll get on GLP-1 drugs because I can buy them, for free or near almost nothing now compared to the $1,300, a few months ago. The second effect is that it's going to produce more bad debt and charity care for hospitals when the bad thing happens.
Yeah.
Now the good news there is the bad thing, the edge case, doesn't happen that often. For the bottom 50% percentile of the country spends no more than $1,400 a year on healthcare, and that's fine. Most people, because they don't pay it all at once, right? Most people can absorb, the pediatrician visit or
that's true on the per household basis, but for a health system with a catchment area of a region, the math is there's going to be significant procedures that happen in their catchment area, and they're going to get patients.
No doubt, and that is going to drive up bad debt. It's going to drive up charity care, and I'll go back to what I said a little while ago. But you're in the nonprofit business, so you're kind of supposed to do that anyway, which won't make a lot of them happy. But that is why they get tax breaks, because of it. So but what I keep coming back to is, if you don't give more flexibility in the sale of health insurance products to people by allowing them to purchase at lower premiums, higher deductible plans. If you don't give them that flexibility, they're going to drop out altogether.
They just won't get it.
And so that $15,000 deductible for a car wreck becomes $100,000 bad debt. So is it the most perfect thing? No, the most perfect thing was everybody would be covered by the Affordable Care Act. It didn't work out because of the policies that we engaged in that inflated this system and made it untenable to run the program we were running before 2022.
Yeah, and so these are coming out of a Republican administration, and is the MAGA or MAHA based thrust for things. Take care of your own health, eat healthier, let's keep you exercising and healthy.
Right.
And then we're going to give personal choice, and we expect people to make decisions correctly. The thing I wanted to ask you about is that whether that's a great policy set or not a great policy set, to the Democratic side, is there an answer from their side about how to, let's say, slow the growth of healthcare inflation?
It's not, yes, is the answer. There is an answer. So the Center for American Progress put out their patient bill of rights. There's also Robert Wood Johnson Foundation with some others are getting together to talk about affordability. The gist of the policy right now, and it isn't particularly being picked up by any candidates or any party people.
So right now it's the think tank kind of policy houses.
The Center for American Progress. Oh, and Third Way, which is the kind of Bill Clinton style
Yeah.
Democrats, have picked up on some solutions, and they rely on a number of ideas. The most important is price caps, is limiting what hospitals can charge. In the Center for American Progress, their policy is, well, if it's in a highly concentrated market, you would put price caps on it. I haven't seen any evidence that the prices in a highly concentrated market like Western North Carolina are that different from Midtown Nashville, which has got 3 major systems, within a half a mile of it. But that price caps is what is the main feature, and some greater regulation. So far, like I said, not getting endorsed by anybody, so it's hard to see if that's going to get traction. But that's what I
think
have
about
so far.
the repercussion of price caps. I mean, as a free market guy, that like
They don't work.
gives me hives,
Well,
but I don't exactly know why. But it doesn't seem like it's
Well, if you're a political, Center for American Progress is very Clinton family aligned. But if you are an advocate for the Affordable Care Act, and you firmly believe in everything about the Affordable Care Act, and we need to continue down that road, you can't look at the data that we're looking at and see these premium spikes and go, oh, well, it's working great. you
need something. That's why I was asking what the Dems are talking about. 'Cause
now there is, and this is the third way has got real problems with this, and I think the Center for American Progress does too. The answer for Senator Sanders is Medicare for all. Let's just nationalize the whole system, and that has been an objective of progressives for a very long time. Probably not politically tenable, however. Neither of those are, but it's a real pickle because there's no articulate message there.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because there's not like a clear alternative.
Right. And the Trump White House is, we're deregulating, we're giving you more options, we're going to stop the flow of cash into this system that's causing the inflation. It's a better foreign policy, shockingly. Republicans have always been terrible at healthcare, and they seem to be getting their juice on it for the first time in 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, giving people more choice sounds good, but it also might be short-sighted. Like people might choose to optimize for like my money this month, and then they could be really expensive 2 years from now. That would be the Affordable Care Act side of it.
That would be that thought. That's what my kids are doing, right? They're pushed into affordable plans, lower premiums, higher deductibles. Why? Because I run 3 marathons a year. I'm fine.
Yeah,
I don't need to worry about this. And that's a choice. That's a choice and a way of thinking that's been in the employer market forever and ever and ever. And does it cost you further on down the road? It depends on how much personal responsibility you assume for your health.
Right. Okay. Next story from Healthcare Dive. HHS launches an AI-backed health fraud crackdown.
About time.
I feel like the administration's been doing crackdowns, trying to get to fraud since Trump took office. But yes, this is the first sort of initiative directly from HHS.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, Barack Obama was a very much, worried about fraud, waste, and abuse. This was one of the original ideas for bending the cost curve. We now have tools that we didn't have before, right?
Yeah.
And which are very exciting. And one of the biggest problems with federal fraud, waste, and abuse efforts is we pay people money. And then we go, oops, we shouldn't have given you that money. Can we get that back? Or we send the Department of Justice after them and say, oh, you have to give that money back. That's how the system works. And because of the way in which money can move via, digital currencies around the world, we now know that money moved out of Medicare and Medicaid programs into transnational organizations, made its way overseas, funded good Lord knows what, and that's why Change Healthcare was a target of transnational organizations. They got a bunch of social security numbers and names. And that would not happen if you had visibility into claims activities. And you could say, why are there so many, home health claims coming out of Minneapolis, Minnesota? That's really weird. We only have 15 agencies in Hennepin County.
Yeah.
And but they couldn't do that. And then
they literally didn't have the technology.
They literally do not have
it.
the technology.
And the technology is there now.
Yes.
They can do it. I want to get your thoughts on this because I've been asking a bunch of people and trying to figure it out. The Republican side of things seems to be kind of beating the drum about fraud, waste, and abuse prevention and getting money back. And I think that's a hard storyline to talk against that much.
Oh, yeah. Which is why it was unanimous forever.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting that the tagline, fraud, waste, and abuse, I think have different connotations, right?
Yeah.
Fraud is very clear. Someone is doing something fraudulent and it's not appropriate and they should
it meets a
go
criminal
in jail.
standard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Waste and abuse is kind of in the eye of the beholder.
It can be, yeah.
And I'm a little bit nervous that if the Democratic side doesn't sort of keep the Republicans honest, there's some programs that are, maybe they're more expensive than we would like, but they're still net good.
Right.
And if the Dems don't start pointing to fraud and saying that is not right, it's very difficult then to have a debate about, well, what is wasteful and what's not? I mean, we want to bring, let's say, fresh food to poor people. They don't have fruits and vegetables easily there. We're going to deliver it to them. There's several states that have waivers around that. That costs more money to deliver than if those people had a grocery store right nearby and they could buy their own food.
Right.
Maybe it's more beneficial to health and it saves the country money over time. We could have that debate and there'd be arguments on both sides. Right. When you lump it all together and the Dems don't even say fraud is bad, you have no one making that case that, well, yes, sure, fresh food is more expensive, but it's also really beneficial to the health of this community.
Yeah, it's very short-sighted, and it has never been the case. We've never, for decades, and
no voter wants fraud.
No, and the president of the United States, Barack Obama, was very outspoken about that, and he put in place systems to prevent it. And there were tons of hearings on the Hill during, the 2010-12 period. So it's not like it's some novel position, And what is worse, and this is just political malpractice on the part of Democrats, which is the White House has focused their attention a lot on two states, Minnesota and California.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? They're discrediting the political leadership in those two states. They might actually affect the outcome of the Los Angeles mayor's race. They might affect the outcome of the governor's race because of it. And the same, could be said about Minnesota. So the fact that the Democrats cannot see, oh wow, we better get on the ball here, because what the Republican Dr. Oz is doing very effectively in his grandfatherly way is these people just cannot run a government program, and you shouldn't trust them. That's what the circumstances he's creating.
Yeah. Last month, Oz said Medicaid fraud crackdown will expand to all 50 states, requiring them to submit plans on how they'll revalidate providers in the safety net program. So they're talking about it as a nationwide crackdown.
Yeah.
But there's no question that the early big stories have been in blue states.
Right.
And it just seems like some smart Democratic strategists should find, Texas is a big state. Florida's a big state. There is fraud there. If you have that many people,
Florida, Florida's fraud central.
Yeah. So now then you can have a discussion about what's the right balance to
Right.
do this stuff.
Yeah, and then the balance has been hard to find because of the lack of technological tools available to them, which I think is something they're very committed to, and are probably going to get it done. The fact that there's fraud in the Medicare program, and I'm assuming this is true, the Medicaid program has been pretty isolated. It's Florida, Illinois, Minnesota, California, New York. It's not even that hard to track it down. John Fetterman of Pennsylvania has been in the kind of reasonable camp. We'll see what Rahm Emanuel says. He's on the stump, trying to see if he can be a candidate for 2028.
I think he could be a great candidate.
He could be
I want someone to be interesting on that side.
He's got the Obama baggage, if you will, but he has the potential to be a very good candidate, and he's obviously very, very smart, and he knows policy because he's been doing it for a long time. So we'll see if he talks about it. But the uncomfortableness, of course, is that there's a lot of Democratic states that he would have to talk about if he's going to talk about it.
Right.
So he may be uncomfortable with that.
Okay, so we're moving on to payers now. There are several stories about both CVS and PBMs. PBMs remain sort of in the crosshairs. They're everyone's villain these days. Tennessee,
PBMs don't even like being PBMs anymore.
Right. Tennessee, where we are, has followed Arkansas. Governor Lilly signed the Freedom, Access, and Integrity in Registered Pharmacies, or the FAIR RX Act. Everything's an acronym these days.
Yeah, I always wonder who puts those together.
Someone's
probably AI now.
Someone's working on it. So in the state of Tennessee, it is now not legal for the same company to operate a PBM and a pharmacy.
Yeah, and this is driven by the independent pharmacists. The independent pharmacists have for years been screaming their heads off because you have seen a massive amount of consolidation between Walgreens and CVS and previously Rite Aid. And a lot of that consolidation, according to the Federal Trade Commission, has been driven by CVS saying, okay, we are going to pay CVS, the PBM, we're going to pay Mr. Independent Pharmacy less money than we're going to pay our own pharmacy for that particular drug. That, in some cases, required the independent pharmacy to take a loss on that prescription.
And it may not even be that egregious. It may just be that they pay the dispensing fee to be very low for their own pharmacies too.
Right.
And kind of transfer price a lot of the margin to the PBM because they own the PBM, and it hurts then all the pharmacies, but doesn't matter to the big guys.
Yeah, that is another way of looking at it. The Federal Trade Commission's focus and Congress's focus has been on the effect on the independent pharmacist. And there was actually a regional pharmacy chain that closed that caught a lot of Congress's attention. So there are antitrust, probably pretty egregious antitrust practices that have gone on here, and that's who's driving this train. Now, what we'll have to see, they're going to sue, and we're going to have to see what they decide. But my guess is that they probably stick with this. CVS is the retail chain is what will persist in Tennessee, not the PBM.
I think we are looking at the end of PBMs.
Oh, yeah.
As they were originally created.
Yeah.
Right. So then the Tennessee representatives in Congress and others, it's a bipartisan effort, have introduced a federal bill very similar to bar the joint ownership of PBMs and pharmacies. I don't know how much traction this will get, but it seems like the horse has already left the barn, right? Like United is doing fixed fees now. Cigna already sold off their thing. CVS is sort of the last big one. Yeah,
the dirty secret about pharmacy benefit managers is they generate rebates from the drug company. So drug company list price is $100. There's a $50 rebate that flows to the pharmacy benefit manager, and that rebate is typically passed on to the employer in a big employer-sponsored plan. that rebate is then used to reduce the cost of health insurance for that employer. It makes that.
And that's why they were created.
And that's why they were created. And the change in the PBM business model is now and will continue to unveil the true cost of the health benefit that employers pay, because as the rebates become less available because of the different models and another of other factors, those then you don't have that, essentially that discount, right, against your SG&A line, against your health benefit lines. And so you're now, and we've seen this in earnings calls where the publicly traded companies are like, yeah, this is becoming a burden.
Yeah. So in Tennessee, it's already passed. The Tennessee legislators have introduced it. I don't know that matters that much in this case, because I think the PBMs are
the market is
like
already
dinosaurs.
Moving away from it.
Okay, and then I think related to this, like if you lose the rebates, the next story from Fierce Healthcare is brokers are increasingly recommending ICHRA, back to ICHRA, for their employers.
Right.
And that is a way to both show the employees exactly how much this costs,
right,
and fix the amount.
Yeah, and subsidize. And one big hang up here is still the lack of flexibility in the insurance market. An employee cannot purchase on the Affordable Care Act exchanges, for example, a health insurance plan that doesn't cover maternity care, even if they're a single male, right? And and we all know the reasons for the risk pool and all that other stuff that were part of the Affordable Care Act. But as your wages get destroyed by insurance premiums, I don't think they really are sympathetic to that argument anymore. And so that is a hang up with ICHRA is, all right, that lack of flexibility.
So the a la carte optionality is pretty limited.
It's still too limited. Yeah. And it's because the plans have these essential health benefits that have to be covered because they have limits on preventive care is covered without any cost share. Primary care, those are all things that drive up premium costs. They may be noble and important and we should do them, but they drive up premium costs.
Okay, so I think that the death of PBMs is going to put pressure on employers and have some effect.
Yeah, agreed.
And this story is about seeing ICHRA beginning to grow.
Well, I think that one of the things to think about here too is that as these little changes are made, they're continuing to put pressure on the employer-sponsored insurance system, which is regulated by the Affordable Care Act, which means that the pressure to deregulate that will continue to build and potentially, actually have some legislative effect.
The last story on CVS, rough week for CVS. Healthcare finance, hospitals
couldn't happen to a nicer group.
CVS Health alleging it redirected $250 million in 340B funds.
Yeah.
A lot of my audience is going to be mad at me, but I kind of side with CVS on this case. I mean, the 340B plan was designed to help poor people get the medicine they need.
Right.
Not as a subsidy to help health systems.
Yeah, no, boy, is it.
And it has evolved to be a subsidy for health systems.
It's an external revenue source for nonprofit hospitals is what it is. And an incentive to purchase doc practices. So it too has been inflationary, in case you haven't detected the theme yet. Inflationary, and it promotes consolidation. So yeah, I think this is such an opaque program. This is the story of unintended consequences. We'll have this wonderful program that will require drug manufacturers to give a discount to hospitals, and then they can get compensated for that drug at the appropriate price by the insurance company. They keep the delta and they use that for their patient pay programs. And we'll let that's not what's happening. And the worst part is you can't even really tell what's happening, you know. And this is why these stories keep popping up. There's no reporting. There's no, and you know, God love Bill Cassidy. You know, now he's gone.
Yeah.
This was one of the things he was
Yeah.
working on. But there's no reporting. There's no way to know. All right, you know, Vanderbilt is a huge user of the 340B program. So is Henry Ford. There's no way to know. All right,
I mean, I would say every nonprofit system that's well run
has a 340B
Yeah.
program. Yeah, but the list of hospitals that represent the most activity, it's definitely a smaller list than you would be surprised. Mount Sinai's there. Henry
they're in
Ford.
this article. They're leading the case.
Yeah, Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Those are just a few of the big
Yeah,
ones.
and I think, you know, defending my friends at Vanderbilt, like the law is what the law is. So until it's changed,
Yeah,
they should you know,
no fault of their
Yeah,
own.
yeah.
You know, I mean, they're doing what the incentives.
right.
You know, this is the story of healthcare. It's a series of terrible incentives that cause people to do things that if you had asked them at the start of their career they were going to do them, no, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's what the incentives are.
Okay, moving into the provider side. The first story from Becker's: 5 new physician residency programs are launching or expanding
Yay.
in 26. This is a great story.
Yeah. Congress that's something good that Congress did.
Yes. Yeah. So we need more doctors. The bottleneck is the residency programs,
Right.
I think, for the most part.
Right.
And maybe we could have more med schools as well, but both the residency programs are really tight.
Yeah.
And so new programs is great.
Yeah, this has been a problem for years, and Congress finally listened, and now it's finally hitting the market.
Yeah.
You're finally
Yeah.
seeing the effects of that, which is great. Hopefully, they still want to be doctors at the end.
Okay, so this is the most surprising story for me this week. Quorum Health, right here in Nashville, are transitioning to a nonprofit for financial pickup. That's what the headline says in Fierce Healthcare.
Right.
This came out, you know, a couple of days ago. I was very surprised. I didn't know that an entire system like this could do it. Certainly, like Ascension will buy an individual hospital
Right.
that's for profit and then convert it. But I had never seen this scale.
A for-profit go to a nonprofit.
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this happen, at least not in any recent years. And you know, they get the benefit of the 340B program. They get the benefit of property tax reductions, income tax reductions. They also probably get some DISH benefits.
What's DISH?
Disproportionate share
okay.
hospital.
Yeah.
They can, you know, attract some philanthropic, you know, donations. It'll, and maybe they'll run a nonprofit hospital better than nonprofit hospitals are normally run. We'll have to see. It's a bit bizarre. I would not do that. I think because the Congress has been working on a bill to require more reporting out on nonprofit hospitals from the IRS, because the IRS takes this position of, okay, you're a nonprofit hospital, check the box, you know, with no,
Right.
all right, what does that mean? You know, and meanwhile, you have these nonprofit hospitals like the University of Virginia Health System suing their patients. And that,
Right.
and back to what another theme is, okay, you get tax exemption for a reason. Maybe we need to manage that a little bit better, but it's a strange thing.
Yeah. So Quorum spun out of Community Health.
Right.
And the group of assets that got spun out, let's say, were challenged. I think it was a pretty hard basket of assets to manage.
Yeah, it looks like it's all rural.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they've been selling off assets and things. And I agree that the trend is for more attention, more regulation on, well, what is the difference between HCA and Ascension?
Right.
And why does one have different tax policy than the other? Just the title, right? Like Quorum Health transitioning to nonprofit for financial pickup is like a signal. Like, okay, well, why is it better financially to be nonprofit?
Well, think about the town as those little towns that they're located in, that their property tax now goes to zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That could be a huge percentage of the municipal funds.
It could be enough to matter,
Yeah.
potentially,
Yeah.
depending on where they are.
So we're going to have to watch this. I mean, Quorum's well run now. They have new leadership. It's interesting. The private equity firm, I don't think they are making a lot of money, but they're getting bought out in this process. That was my first question.
Who's the private equity firm?
Golden Tree? I don't know anyone at Golden Tree.
Okay.
That was my first question. Like, well, what happens to the equity owners? And the answer is they got bought out.
Okay.
Now, I don't think for a huge financial return, but it's not a great investment.
Yeah, so they stopped being publicly traded a while ago.
Oh, yeah. So Quorum, I think they spun out into
a private equity? Okay.
I think. I may not be right. So anyway, we'll have to watch that. It's just an interesting. Okay, so now there's several nationwide brands, health brands, that are taking action and growing. And so I have grouped together. The first one, Amazon taps Roy
Schoenberg,
who did Amwell to lead their healthcare business. And so they hired a healthcare guy to help them. It's Amazon's 100th attempt to do healthcare, but they keep going.
They keep
trying. They have plenty of capital. They're very patient. Eventually they're going to get it right.
Maybe, yeah.
Amwell is not a bad training ground to go work with One Medical and Amazon.
Yeah, Amwell is a telehealth backbone, and Amazon has PillPack, right? And this is the theme. This is the matchup. The matchup is telehealth and drugs.
Yeah. So right where you're going, the next story, Amazon One Medical, they announced they're launching a GLP-1 program integrated with their primary care, One Medical.
Right.
Just like we were talking about in one of the other segments, that you really need to sort of help your patients navigate this transition.
Right. You should, yes. Yeah.
Because you use muscle mass when you don't eat as well.
Right. Yeah. Now, assuming you don't have a good clinical program, I question whether or not One Medical, because it has brick and mortar, docs, that's one that. But telehealth, is there actually a clinical program, being executed there? And unlikely, And I told you earlier that this GLP-1 thing has been a big miss for Weight Watchers, which has always been really good on here's the behavioral changes you need to make.
Right.
And the problem with GLP-1 drugs is if you aren't careful about how you're living your life while you're on them, and you're just treating them like, the old, fen and the other weight loss drugs.
Yeah.
You could potentially lose weight, one, too fast, and two, lose muscle mass. And then once you've lost that muscle mass and you decide to go off it or taper, your basal metabolism is that much lower.
Yes,
and so,
I have a story about that exact topic in 3 stories. So let's come back to that. But Amazon's making moves, again.
Yeah, drugs and telehealth.
Yeah.
They go together.
Okay, then Oura, maker of Oura rings.
I love this.
They have moved into health much more aggressively.
Right.
They were here in Nashville at one of the conferences where I heard the CEO
it was
talk.
Sessions,
exactly.
Yeah, Nashville Sessions.
And he was really impressive and taking it seriously. Of course, in Finland, they're going public.
That's great.
And yeah, I think it's great. It's, more people with access to their health analytics all the time.
Right.
Is going to they'll be more educated.
Right. And you change, you little by little, you change the culture there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really, underneath it all, this is what the MAHA movement is about. And going back to, you bought a high deductible plan, maybe you need to be a little bit more careful about your health. Well, one way to be more careful about your health is to actually pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And this, everybody I know has one of these friends.
Yeah, right.
I know. And this is a cultural sea change, because you have the healthcare system in America has really operated under the premise of, if you're not sick right now, you're going to be sick. and we're going to build this massive system to make sure that you're protected. Now, the shift underway is, no, you're healthy, and we're going to keep you that way. And there's this massive shift underway to reverse a lot of what was built over the years, and a lot of that is private sector stuff. Not centrally planned government top-down approaches. It's Oura rings and Whoop and high deductible plans and
it's less regulation, more personal responsibility, and providing tools to enable people to do that.
Right.
Versus we will take care of you when you're sick and don't worry about it.
Pop a cup of Lipitor
right. Yeah.
after your cheeseburger.
Okay, then GoodRx also launches a subscription program.
Oh, how about that? A drugs and telehealth.
Yes. So GoodRx is moving from drugs only to now adding telehealth in a subscription kind of a package, $14.99 a month, gets users to access free and low-cost generic medications, online care visits, additional health services. So $15 a month. Who needs insurance? You can just go to GoodRx. What could happen? What could go wrong?
The field that was plowed by HIMSS, which says telehealth paired with, drug purchases that maybe you don't want to go to the doctor about initially, but then eventually the GLP-1 drugs, and now they're moving into the peptides, is kind of Amazoning healthcare. There's nobody there going, oh, well, why don't you try exercise first?
Right.
There's nothing like that. So it's not, in terms of like pure good health, it's not great, because it's a telehealth visit, not a physician visit. Is it better than nothing? Yes, it's absolutely better than nothing. But I also, the important trend, in addition to the obvious, is that idea of selling drugs outside of PBMs, outside of this wholesale channel that has driven up list prices and making drug prices untenable, is starting to flower. Started with HIMSS, Lilly Direct, now GoodRx,
Yeah, I mean, in this show, there's Amazon, GoodRx, and Oura Ring all coming with some version of that value proposition. And the thing that I've been noticing that I don't know when it's going to flip, but these are all nationwide brand. Oura is a global brand.
Right.
Amazon global brand. They are going to be serving the entire country.
Right.
And there aren't health systems or provider groups that have that kind of reach at that scale, or the branding and marketing.
And
strength.
this is where I wonder about their success. Healthcare, for all of its flaws, eventually you have to go see a doctor for many, many, many things. And you can't do that with a telehealth visit. And medicine is a kind of regional function. Are they?
Does it have to be regional? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I've thought about it a lot, and I keep coming down to yes for now. And why is that? It's regional because the doctors are educated around nodes, and that's usually an academic medical center. Then they will kind of branch off of that node, but stay oftentimes in the same region, where there'll be orthopedics at TOA, or there'll be, cardiologists at St. Thomas. And everything about their training is putting hands on a patient and so forth. Is it going to purely stay regional? Probably not, because people travel, to see the doctor. But there's an organization of the system and a regulation of the system that makes it biased towards local, regional, and not national, just because of the regulation of the docs and the education and training of them.
Maybe that's what I want to. We probably don't need to go into right now more detail, but
it's something to think about.
Because I think that it used to be that all the primary care office visits were in the office, and then you were referred to the referral patterns that the primary care doc referred you to. And there was no telehealth platform like Amazon,
Right.
GoodRx,
Right, yeah.
Hims. I have heart disease, and so I have a cardiologist here in town, but I only see him once a year.
Right.
I could easily be communicating with him on text and Zoom,
Right.
and then fly to Nashville for my 1-year checkup to the
Right.
extent I needed that. If I needed a stint, you could plan for that. If it's some kind of emergent problem, that's a whole different
Right.
triage
Right.
process. I don't know that there's any reason that all the patients have to be within 1 hour of the facility anymore.
And I don't know that is it so much as and it's worth a broader discussion, because it could be in some areas, it could be national. And that's certainly the case with drugs, right?
Yeah.
And the movement of drugs all around the country.
And I think all the chronic care.
And potentially the chronic care as well. But in terms of
orthopedics, where you went with TOA, that usually is a reasonably contained procedural thing. Like, I hurt my knee, I need to get it fixed.
Right. And I go to rehab, the sports medicine facility.
So that specialty, I think you would still want it to be reasonably close to home.
And it's pediatrics, right? You don't want to televisit. You want your kid, to stop screaming.
Yeah, right. Yes. Now,
you like some of that pink stuff for the ear infection.
Right. 2 stories on Lilly. This is from the New York Times. One and done heart disease prevention. Scientists show it may be possible. So a single infusion of experimental gene editing. There's only been 35 patients tested, so it's tiny N, but the results have been really impressive, where reduced LDL pretty dramatically with that single treatment. So the 35 patients had their LDL cholesterol reduced by 62% over 18 months.
No, that's impressive.
So it's a significant change. I take 2 statins every day, and I'm very adherent because I don't want to die of heart disease.
Right.
But people in general have a hard time sticking with their medications.
Right.
And so a one-time treatment that basically changes the genetics in your liver so that
you don't produce
I think you produce more of the antigens that take away LDL. Right. But yeah, same effect. Like your body now is better able to process cholesterol. Right. It's pretty exciting. Now, it's tiny numbers. Lilly already owns control of it, because Lilly is everywhere. But yeah, it's several years before it gets to market.
Right, and I'm looking at the quote that we need more safety data, because cholesterol is obviously an important part of your body.
Yeah, there's positive functions for cholesterol. Yeah. You can't get rid of cholesterol altogether.
No, because your brain needs it. So let's just come back to that.
Yes, right.
I like the idea. I just worry about not enough cholesterol.
And then Lilly bought 3 vaccine developers in deals valued up to nearly $4 billion. You spend a lot of time on vaccines.
Oh,
so what do you think about these vaccines?
There's the one that's got my attention here is the Epstein-Barr virus, which is connected to multiple sclerosis, which is pretty interesting. The problem with the vaccine policy is, one, there's no product liability, which is, when you poll on it, something like 86% of poll respondents say that's stupid. There should be product liability. The second problem with it is the control. If you have no product liability, so you have no market control. The control would be the federal government, the approval process, and that failed, along the way in recent years, and so that the problems here are that nobody's really settled into, all right, what is the vaccine policy supposed to be? Lilly is there's way too far down the road here before they actually, are going to be rolling anything out.
Yeah, I mean, both these things that came out with Lilly this week are not going to market.
They're not going to market. And when they do, it's going to be probably a different environment where you can't, roll into Washington and say, hey, I want everybody to be required to take this vaccine, for Epstein-Barr. that's probably not going to happen now. So the sales, but they didn't pay much for this. They paid about $4 billion for all these companies, and so they got a good deal. And if one of them survives, like an Epstein-Barr looks, that's got probably has some legs. The shingles vaccine.
I got the current shingles vaccine, and it has. I was sick for 2 days.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. As I told you, I had never had chicken pox, so I had the chicken pox vaccine as an adult.
Part of the thing that confuses me about vaccines is I can't find a definition of what makes this a vaccine and the heart treatment that we just talked about not a vaccine.
Well, you are into a very controversial topic because vaccines are defined by Merriam-Webster because they are not defined in the code. It is understood when you read the federal code what a vaccine is, except there is actually a definition.
So what does Merriam-Webster say it is?
That's very controversial because Merriam-Webster until 2021 said it is a drug that's designed to prevent the spread and acquisition of illness.
Yeah, like the common understanding that I hold is that if I take the vaccine for shingles,
you won't get shingles.
That I won't get shingles.
Right, and shingles is not really communicable. You're not going to. It's not like chicken pox where you're going to spread it to somebody else.
But that's not how I understand a vaccine. Like whether the disease is communicable or not. If I take this thing called a vaccine, then I won't get the drug that it covers.
There's two parts to vaccine policy. The first part is we want a drug to prevent a disease that's very uncomfortable, like shingles. Mm-hmm. Okay, easy, right? Yeah. Then there's a public interest part to that, which is we want to prevent the spread of measles in a community.
Yeah, we don't want pregnant women to get measles.
We do not want pregnant women to get dangerous. That's very dangerous and very bad. So we have a public policy that says everyone has to be inoculated against measles. The public policy isn't there to say, stand in your shoes and go, we don't want you to get measles. We don't. But really what we're concerned about is the spread in the community for, people who don't even know you have measles.
Right.
So that's a two
parts. But those are the two benefits of a vaccine.
That's two, yes.
I think it could be possible for you and I to write on a piece of paper how do we define a vaccine.
Right. Now, if you go to Merriam-Webster since 2021.
Yeah, so it changed?
Yes. And it changed to say, in addition to the obvious definition, a genetic, like mRNA, I think it even cites mRNA, a genetic therapeutic to prevent the acquisition and spread of disease, which if you use the plain language understanding of the word vaccine, which the courts generally require, you now have this additional definition. Now, why did they do that? There's all kinds of stupid theories around there. They probably did it because in 2020, we were presented with something called a vaccine that actually, was a nice little chunk of mRNA code. And that has caused Moderna to talk about their vaccines, which are actually cancer therapeutics, right?
Right.
Let me give you this therapeutic here, and
that'll make the cancer less bad.
Less bad,
or you might even go into remission.
Right.
But it's not going to prevent you from ever getting cancer.
Correct.
That's not how it's designed.
That's not how it's designed. And what it really is an immunotherapy, right? It's manipulating the immune system to do a certain thing. But because you call it a vaccine, you're trying to shoehorn your way into...
Yeah, you get this coverage, this liability coverage.
Product liability. Will Moderna get away with that? No, I don't think they will. Will anybody get away with that? I don't think they will. The whole point of the product liability waiver when it was established in the 80s was nobody wanted to make polio and measles vaccine. Mm-hmm. And Ronald Reagan's response was, well, why don't you just make them safer? and they're like, no, we can't do that. And so that's where that came from. And it's a huge problem for the White House and the FDA, because you have this MAHA movement that's like, some people are on one end of the extreme, which are like, no way, no how, never.
Mhm.
And then there are responsible people on, not even on the other, but in the middle, who are like, no, let's just look at what it is and decide, on a case by case basis. And then there are people, mostly in big pharmaceutical companies, who are like, vaccine all the way, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's
I mean, if I was a shareholder of Moderna, I love the vaccine
right.
definition.
Right, but
And everything should be a vaccine.
right. It's a little bit of a stretch. So it's still to be worked out, and that makes some people uncomfortable.
Okay, so now we get to the story that you were foreshadowing. So Wall Street Journal, is the weight loss drug revolution causing a frailty epidemic? Certainly leading us towards that.
Right.
As millions flock to GLP-1s, doctors warn that the drugs can cause rapid and significant muscle loss, which clearly they can.
Right. Yeah. If you treat a GLP-1 drug like you would, a weight loss pill, okay, and you lose weight, but you don't exercise and you don't lift weights and you don't eat protein and you don't do all the things that any sensible person would do when they're trying to lose weight, or you will lose muscle mass. And this is, I think I told you earlier, this is a failure of, Weight Watchers. This is a perfect job for them, to say, okay, here's GLP-1 drug now, and here are your, 15-pound barbells. Let's go, let's keep it all together and in balance. And this is a very unfortunate and I think it's not going to turn out well for a lot of people, but because the right clinical program is take the GLP-1 drugs, exercise as much as you can, have a very good resistance training program, and eat lots of protein.
Yeah,
that's what you need to do, but most people don't understand that to be true.
It's not required. I mean,
and it's not required.
It's like it says something like, we suggest that you do resistance training versus you must do resistance training if you're going to do this.
Well,
drug.
I mean, if you don't want to lose all this muscle.
Right.
Now, if you're 80-year-old on Medicare, you're probably thinking, I don't need to do that.
I mean, if you're 80, you're already
pretty frail.
Yeah. So you're already trying to improve your life.
Right.
It's more the 40-year-old that loses 70 pounds, and then are they going to be on a GLP-1 for the rest of their life? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, so after 2 or 3 years, they go off it, and now they've lost a bunch of muscle mass, but they gain some weight back.
Right.
And now their body composition is much worse.
Yeah, much worse, and their basal metabolism is lower.
Right.
And so they're, they have to eat less. It's just it really it's a situation just screaming for some good clinical intervention, or some just, here's what you should do.
Just guidance.
But a lot of people don't want to do that.
In the About Health and Us category, doctors and hospitals are struggling to keep up with Ebola spread in Africa. And I wanted to talk through this. Ebola comes up every few years, every 5-7 years or so. And it's terrible in Africa.
Horrible, yeah.
And it has a high mortality rate, but it hasn't really been a global pandemic like we experienced with COVID.
Right.
And you were talking about the communicability is, maybe it has to be through.
I think it's body fluids. For Ebola, but it's not a, like we were just talking about measles. Measles just lightning fast.
Yeah.
Because it spreads on respiratory droplets. And we saw this in the early stages of COVID. That one was moving pretty fast as well. And when you've got those situations, you have a different public health response than when you have, something like this. What makes Ebola and hantavirus so scary is because the mortality is horrible.
Right.
And they're just awful hemorrhagic,
right? The symptoms, the whole process is really
terrible,
difficult.
But what is one of the things that because these stories get resurrected, one of the struggles for the international public health community is the fact of the matter is that there are certain diseases, and Ebola is one of those, that are going to disproportionately affect places that most people, most Americans, never set foot on and could care less about Ebola. And when you spend a lot of time talking about Ebola or the hantavirus or whatever, and they don't have any direct effect on the American population, but you act like they will, you create a credibility gap. But I think we're past that. And during the cruise line hantavirus thing,
there was pretty good messaging about it, wasn't it?
It was solid messaging. Look, we don't see a real threat here. It travels through mice. If you've got mice poop, don't vacuum it up.
Right.
But they had a lot more discipline on it, and I hope that continues, because being kind of rational about the spread of disease is probably good for everybody.
Going to the AI rundown, we are not going to cover the Google I/O marathon of stuff that came out 2 weeks ago, just because we had so much other news today. But there's a couple of things to touch on. Huawei has created a workaround so that they do not need NVIDIA chips, and they can deliver the same performance without that. Now, whether that's fully true or not, it seems like China is building its own domestic chipset to compete.
Yeah, and I think the game plan for the U.S. is we're not going to let you have those extra special chips, and we're not letting those out of the country. So, and I because a chip is it's not IP really, it's a thing. I think they can be successful. Unless
there'll be NVIDIA chips that make it to mainland China, but they're decent size, they're physical. It's hard to bring in millions of them.
Right. Yeah. So I think that that's how they'll control it. And if they say they've got cutting edge and it's going to match, well, then that's what they do.
I mean, their models right now, I think, are probably 6 months behind the U.S., but they're not far behind the U.S. Even as it is. So,
well, they're still communists.
Yeah. Headline in the Wall Street Journal: Amazon strikes $6 billion deal with Snowflake for their agentic chips. Amazon has two types of chips. They have the Trainium chips and they have this inference chip. NVIDIA has, been the dominant chip maker, but everyone is sort of joining the party, and there's plenty of demand.
Right, and there's plenty of federal support, for that to happen, and it is a priority of the federal government to make America chip again.
Right. Yes, we need to do that before something happens with Taiwan.
Well,
we need to at least give ourselves a plausible pathway.
And that is a big part of it. And I was talking to a friend of mine about tariffs and how upset he is. He's a free trader. And I'm like, well, there are other things besides free trade, and one of those is national security. And we've lived in at least for I mean, I didn't grow up in this world, but my kids did, where we think of the world as this friendly place all over the world. It's this friendly place, and nobody wants anything bad to happen to the U.S. government. And that is just not true. And it never has been true, but now it's not true. And you put the federal government is putting things in place that'll, secure that. Hopefully they work. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. And then I like this story from the Wall Street Journal in their entrepreneurship section. AI expands from a multi-billion-dollar enterprise to Main Street. So this woman, her name's Helen Godin, she makes bundt cakes, and she got a lot of demand at a trade show for bundt cakes and used AI to scale her business. She's sitting on top of maybe, 50 bags of flour.
Right.
And so AI is now getting to the point where it is easy enough to use that the Byway Bakery can scale nationwide.
Right.
And Helen's doing a great job.
Well, and this is the story, right? And for all the gloom and doom about from Anthropic and from OpenAI, lost jobs, and 50% of jobs will be over, and Elon Musk and his abundance thing. The fact of the matter is if you go back to the invention of fire, you will find technology does a few things. One, it increases productivity. Two, it creates jobs. And if it's different this time, somebody explain to me how, because all I see this health policy analyst has written a few Python codes recently.
Nice,
Okay.
nice.
And this was not possible before.
Right.
Right. But what I've done is I've made sure that I don't have my operations department doesn't have to do it for me. I can do it myself. I can check my work.
Yeah.
I can, play around with it. I can come up with an idea, and like call me Cyber Emily. That's going to be the story of AI, not I lost my job at a call center. I don't think.
I mean, I think the story is going to roll out in fits and starts, right?
Exactly.
So unfortunately, the news about plane crashing gets many more eyeballs than the news of a plane landing nicely. And so the news cycle often focuses on job losses or scare thing, which is why I wanted to bring Helen into it. It didn't say in the article, but she's grown eightfold. She definitely has more humans there too, as well as the technology, which is wonderful. I mean, she's able to bring her bun cakes nationwide.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll go global.
And hired some people, and they maybe were working at the call center in town.
Right. Yeah.
Good for Helen.
Okay, and then the last story, the Erdos breakthrough. So OpenAI used their LLM to create a solution for a geometric problem that's way over my head called Erdos breakthrough.
Right.
It's been 80 years with mathematicians trying to solve this problem, and OpenAI was able to solve it. And there's a great video that explains this so that I could understand it when I was watching the video. I can't relate it to the audience right now, but we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And it's the first real kind of mathematical or science breakthrough that I've seen.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see, this is kind of the cool thing, is that, you let a computer, I mean, humans are confined by time. The time and money, or there really isn't anything else. And assuming researchers in academic institutions that like to play around with the Erdos, theory, they still have the limitation of time to do that. And what is that time? How is that time better spent? Right. And so, but a computer doesn't have those problems, and again, assuming there's plenty of resources to buy the computer and the program, you can, set it and forget it and let me know when you figure it out. And you can't do that with a human being. And I would extend that to the massive amount of, human product that's sitting at the FDA in paper files, that tell us things we don't even know what it's going to tell us, and that you keep going with that, and you've got some pretty cool solutions that are not confined by time and money.
Yeah, completely trust Sam Altman and OpenAI.
You shouldn't. Yeah.
And so they published that on their own website.
Right.
So I didn't want to talk about it unless it was confirmed. But Nature, I do trust Nature because they're a pretty well-known academic publication, and they agreed. AI cracks an 80-year-old mathematics challenge, and they have a picture of the poor Paul Erdos, who has just been surpassed by OpenAI. But he died 80 years ago. So
he doesn't look too upset about it in that picture. But that's the beauty of it. That's what'll I think one of the challenges for Americans is this: everyone's so used to being down on everything. It's like, why don't we be kind of excited about the prospects here? Because if I can write a Python code, for example,
you can write Python. Helen is shipping bun cakes across the country,
right?
And OpenAI has invented a new way to do a fancy geometry thing that's over my head. These are all incredibly positive things that will benefit our kids and benefit us.
Right. And
yes, it will be bumpy and there'll be some unintended consequences, but the good will probably be better than the bad.
Right. And the challenge, sort of philosophically, and going back to the fertility problem, is, to start thinking, okay, this could be good, and to start thinking that in a public policy kind of way, which is right now, just seems to careen from one terrible Ebola outbreak or hantavirus outbreak and AI doom and gloom, to just from one awful thing to the next. And it's like, That's just not really a great way to run policy.
Mhm.
I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. So lots going on this week, but I think I'm optimistic.
Oh, we should be. Absolutely.
Emily, thanks for doing this incredible show.
Thanks for having
Marcus's
me.
job may be in jeopardy. We'll might have you on again.
Yeah, you snooze, you lose.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.